All right, so we got the old Ranger here, and there's an upgrade that I of course, scrolling the reels a little bit, decided there was something that this truck needed. And this is something that when I first got it, this steering wheel is pretty beat up. So I put this Ford one on just from AutoZone or wherever it was, Advanced Auto. And it's fine, but it's starting to come apart a little bit. It's getting a little bit of edges on it. And just, these are really thick and just doesn't really feel good when you're cruising around. I mean, it's better than a beat up steering wheel, but we're gonna do better than that. So I got something that I hope is gonna work out. So over here on the bench, I've got this here, because I don't want to be working outside on that steering wheel, because that one actually, the whole top of it is starting to fade and just come apart, like delaminate, just from sitting in the sun all those years. And I got another decent steering wheel from eBay. It was like 80 bucks, probably 100 bucks by the time I got to my door, and it's in really nice shape. So I could just go ahead and just put this nice steering wheel on, but I think we're gonna go a step further and we're gonna put a custom cover on it. This is from Stitching Cover. So you've probably seen their ads online like I did, and thought it looked easy enough and the product looked pretty good. So I figured, why not? We'll do a custom steering cover for the Ranger. And now I hope I don't have to be a seamstress to be able to figure out how to get this thing to look nice, but we're gonna go through it together and just kind of see how it all goes. So first off, just the colors I picked. You can pick your stitch cover, you can pick your thread color, all that. I went with the gray just for the gray interior, kind of like a silverish. Figure that would match that, and then went with the red kind of Raptor style for our top piece there. It's a lot thinner than the Raptor one. Raptor ones are a little thicker, you can see there, but kind of give it a little bit of a Raptor look. And we've got this two-sided tape here too, so they say to put that on the inside over here just so it doesn't move around, I guess, when you get it all stitched up. Keep it nice and in place when you're using your wheel. So we'll see how that is. The only concern is if I'm going to be able to feel that tape or see it. I hope it's thin enough that it should be good to go, but we'll see how it all looks when it comes together. And first off, you just want to make sure that you have everything lined up to where you want it. So your 12 o'clock is lined up with the 12 o'clock little leather bit there, and then we'll figure out our first stitch and see how it's going to look when we start getting this all wound together. All right, so for starters, we're going to have to get our needle onto our thread. So number one, you're going to put one end of the end of your thread. I've got it doubled up here. This is how much I got cut off. I probably have more than I need, but we're going to probably have better to have more than less, just so when we get to the end we can cut it off and tie it instead of running out, because then you got to start all over again with a new piece, and I don't want to have to do that. So we got our two ends right here, and then what we're going to do is put one end through our needle, let the needle go to the end over there, and then we'll do a double knot, tie that up tight, cut off the little pigtails, and we should be ready to start our stitch. All right, so thread is ready to go. Now you can see here, this is our two-sided tape. I just have it pulled back here a little bit. I positioned a few just around the wheel, and then we're just gonna have to take off that protective coating, which is this here. It says 3M on it. So this is actually the thicker bit of what our two-sided tape is. So this stuff we should not feel underneath the leather at all. Just going to keep it from moving around when it expands, contracts, all that kind of thing. So it does have a decent fit to it on its own, but this is just going to help it from moving. So you just got to go around now, get that film off, and then we'll carefully set this into place, make sure we got everything lined up as best we can, and then we can start stitching. So once you get it started, this is what it looks like. Just being able to pull that paper off, get that out of our way. All right, so we got our light set up here so we can see what we're doing. But first stitch, once we got our thread all ready to go, it's gonna go on the inside above the stitching on the inside right there, according to what I can see here. So we're gonna make our first incision. You have to actually go through the material, and then we'll pull it back through and show you guys how we're gonna make our first stitch. All right, this is what we have. I have it started, and we're just gonna push that needle through, kind of like this. And We're gonna pull our thread all the way through to our knot, just like that. So then according to our instructions, it says go through the first line on the other side. So we're going from the inside out. This will be the first line that I can see that is close enough to that corner. So we'll put our thread right through that guy right there and pull it tight and go in for our next stitch. And then we brought it back through, went through the first line on the other side, just like the instructions show. And we pulled that tight, just kind of make sure that you're squared up the best you can. All right, so I've kind of got my stool here and I've got it in the vise this way just so I could see a little bit better, and that's my stitching so far. I think it looks pretty good for first time ever doing this. And I've seen people struggle with these online and they're not bad. I mean, you just want to go, I mean, the stitch pattern I'm doing is just inside on the one closest to you. And then, so we'll pull that through. Just want to make sure your thread doesn't bunch up like it wants to do. Yeah, that requires two hands just to make sure that that thread doesn't do that. So I'm going to fix that and then we'll show you guys the second stitch. So now for our inside thread, you can see we have it gone inside towards you. I'm going to pull nice and easy so we don't get it all bunched up, but usually I'm using my other hand. Make sure that all goes smoothly. And then we just kind of pull it tight. And then we just go to the next one. And you can always see which one is which because you'll see how it's pulled right there. So you're going to go to the next one that isn't pulled. Make sure your thread is nice and straight. Push it through. And then we're having a little bit of bunching going on because I'm doing it one-handedly again. But work that through like that. And then see if we can do this one-handedly. Put our needle onto the next loop without making a mess. Okay. Nice and easy. Sometimes you just need a little finesse to get our threads from bunching up, but it's kind of nicely, gingerly pull that together and we end up with a pretty nice stitch. So you might be wondering what to do on the back side where you have the spokes of the steering wheel. What I did is I just went on my last stitch and then I just zigzagged across on the back side of the wheel, so we're not going to see that, and then it's just going to be like a normal, it's just going to look like this on the other side, so we can hide that, but that just kind of zigzag back and forth, and then we're going to start our stitch again once we can get past, but keeping it nice and tight to this spoke and get everything to come together. And I'll show you guys how that looks once we start stitching our next section here. All right, so this is what it looks like when you get on the other side of the spoke. You can see that the stitching looks really nice. I got it pretty close, nice and tight in there. And I think for the future of the spokes, I'm gonna actually go and get some of that two-sided tape and add it right in that section. Just because if you do get your finger here, you can pull that back if you wanted to. I mean, it's not going to be, this is the bottom of the wheel, so you're usually driving with your hand up here, so it's not really a big deal. But I think just if I could do it over again, I would put one of those pieces of two-sided tape just in these areas, just because we're not going to have that stitch holding it really tightly in that position. But it is pretty tight. It's not too bad whatsoever. But if you just grab this section here, it feels factory. I mean, this is, I'm really impressed with this for the 50 some, like $55 I think this kit was. If everything turns out the way that this has and we get the whole thing looking like that, I'm gonna be very, very happy with this wheel. So what happens when you run out of thread? So that's kind of where we're at right here. What we cut off there, which was fairly long, made it all the way to there. So got a long ways to go. We're gonna need a lot more thread. So when you gotta finish it off, what I did is I just made a hole. I actually use a seal pick here because it's a little easier to push through. Just be careful you don't poke your finger, because that's what I did. And then you get your needle through the leather part. So you can see right there. through the leather. We're going to push this needle through, and then we're going to tie a knot on the other end so this can't come undone. Make sure that's nice and tight, and then we can restart the same way we started from the beginning right here and just keep on going. All right, so it's day 2 on our little Ranger wheel here. I got our little Raptor style red piece here in the middle. See how that's looking? Everything's looking really nice. I'm very, very happy with the steering wheel cover itself. It feels really good. The quality feels good. But there is a couple of things that I would recommend to make your life a lot easier. You can see my stitch right here. It does look good, but my stitch from here to here looks better. And the reason for that is I switched to this thread. This thread is from Amazon. It's a leather thread. It's a tiny little bit thicker than the stuff it comes with. I did have a problem with the stuff that stitching cover supplies. It frayed and it ended up looking like that. I had to cut that off and my needle actually broke. There's the eye of it and there's the rest of it. So that's why they give you 2 needles, because that can happen, and I lost the other one. So no big deal. Needles are cheap. We do have this one that actually came with the new roll of thread that I bought from Amazon, and then I got a whole pack of new needles, which are actually shorter than the one that it comes with, which are a little easier to work with. And this thread is actually waxed, so it's a little easier to work with. And we got a little shorter of a needle, so you're not really, when you get into some of the tighter spots in the back of the wheel, you don't want to be hitting the wheel itself, trying to make that thread on your pattern. But it is time consuming and you want to have a good product. I feel like this thread does a whole lot nicer stitch. It does have a little tiny bit of stickiness because of that wax, but no big deal. That'll wear off over time, and really honestly, you're only holding the back side of the wheel for the most part anyways. But my opinion is just buy that thread, buy the proper needles that don't have the open part on it, because the needles that it comes with has a little space where you can actually slip your thread into. These ones you have to just, push it through the eye like you would normally think you would. So yeah, thread is garbage, the needles are garbage, the cover is good. So that's just where I'm at with it. So I'm gonna keep on stitching here and show you guys the final product. All right, so we reached the end of our journey on our leather wrap wheel. You can see my back stitches here where I just kind of wove back and forth. And this is our final bit. If you guys are old like me, you need a magnifying glass sometimes just to see properly. But what I did was I went through one of these holes, just kind of these little perforations. And I've been using a seal pick to kind of poke through just so I don't have to worry about hurting my fingers trying to push that needle through, and just makes life a little bit easier. And what I did was I pushed that needle through the actual perforation right there close to that last stitch. And then I tied a knot through the needle. This is just sticking, just kind of set in the middle of the knot. And then I can push the knot back in behind the leather a little bit and then tighten it up. And then at the very end, I will pull the needle out and tighten it up, and our knot will be there at the end. And then I'll probably just do one more at the end just to make sure everything is double knotted and isn't going to come undone. But with this waxed thread, I really don't feel like it's going to do that. But I guess we'll see as time goes on. But this wheel's looking good. I'm pretty happy with it. It was a lot of work. There's a lot of extra work, and it's not as easy as they make it look online. But at the end of the day, if you can have a wheel that feels like a brand new truck, seeing how they don't make new Rangers, the old school Rangers anymore, it's just a nice feel in your hand and a really nice look for our vehicle. So this hopefully will help you guys out in making that decision whether to get one of these wheels. So I'm going to finish this off and give you guys kind of what I've ran into and just how it looks all together, all done up. All right, everybody, here it is all stitched up, ready to go into our Ranger, our XL steering wheel. The reason I went with this style and an XL wheel is because on the Rangers, they do have cruise control buttons on the higher trims that had the leather wheel, so you can only get a vinyl wheel with no buttons. And I don't want buttons that don't do anything because my truck doesn't have cruise control. So that's kind of where I was at with it, and this is why I decided to spend the time to make this happen. But I'm very happy with the result. We don't have any real mishaps that happen on here. You can see everything is pretty smooth, even though I had to transition a couple of times with running out of thread, breaking needles, all that kind of stuff, switching to a different thread. And you can see it doesn't really look different. So I really like the way it looks. I would probably go with a black thread if I had to do it over again, just because I don't know how this is going to be if I have, you know, dirty hands or anything like that, if that's going to get gungy over time. But my thought process was go with the silver for the silver and like the gray interior of the truck to make that match. And then I went with the red marker in the middle. All this stuff is optional. I went with the perforated synthetic leather up here and then the smooth on the sides. And yeah, I think it worked out really well. I like the way the stitching is. I like the way it feels. Very premium. And it feels like a new vehicle. And that's kind of what I was going for. I really hate when you get into a vehicle, even though it's just my beater truck, you grab the wheel and it's all rough. And, you know, it's been, the truck's been abused. It's been a work truck. And the person that drove this truck was very, very dirty, never cleaned it. And it took a lot of cleaning, if you guys look back on any of the videos, to get the truck even where it is now. But having this, when you're driving down the road, this is what you're making contact with. And it feels better. It's just a better experience, and that's kind of what it's all about for me. And I just wanted to go down this path with you guys so I could show you in real time just well, not real time, but like the actual hands-on and my real experience of going through this, and not just the, you know, videos online where they just play music in the background because they probably don't speak English or they just want to make it for everybody. But this is just a little bit of the pointers and some of the real life product that you can have for yourself if you're willing to put in the time and effort. All right, so I probably should have filmed doing this, but I was just trying to get it done. So here we have our steering wheel in the truck. Everything looking really, really nice. Airbag, pretty simple stuff. Disconnect your battery, and then on either side there's a hole on your steering wheel, and this is if you want to remove the steering wheel. If you're just doing the cover, you can just do it in the truck if you want to, but if you want to make it easier on yourself on the bench, you can do that by pulling the wheel, and I'm just going to go over the quick ins and outs of doing that. So there's a 7mm on either side. Airbag will come out. There's 2 connectors on the back of the airbag. There's a yellow one and an orange one. There's a black connector, little kind of like locking tab, and you just go in the back side of that, pop it forward on either one, and they will come off of the airbag. So that's out of the way, and depending on what type of harness you have behind your different ears are changed slightly, but there's just a couple of grounds you got to disconnect. There's one with the Torx that I had to remove on mine, but some of them come out with the connector. It all really depends on your year, but that's kind of the basics of it. And then the main bolt that holds this all together, it like holds the wheel to the column, is a T47. And then there's 2 spots that you can use a 2-jaw puller that hooks going outward will pull the wheel off, or you can just yank on it, just pull as hard as you can, top, bottom, side to side, and work it, and you will get it off as well, because that's what I had to do, because my 2-jaw puller has disappeared somehow, and I was tired of looking for it, so I just ended up yanking on it until it came off. And this is what you're looking like on the inside of the wheel. But this is our old dirty one, and I cleaned everything up too. I cleaned in behind the airbag, cleaned the clock spring up, everything really nicely, because I could actually smell the old smell of this truck behind that because of the person that used to drive this. I think it was a smoker, and you could just smell the nicotine and all the nastiness there. And I scrubbed this down really good on the airbag with a brush on a drill. And then I was using some of this stuff. This is a Sonic's plastic detailer. It actually has a lot of, I think this is a lot of like silicone and stuff in it. So it makes a nice shine to it and really brought the airbag back to life. So probably use a little bit on the wheel as well. But my old wheel, definitely see a lot of this stuff. And then if you take this off, the whole thing is just really falling apart. So don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'll probably end up throwing it away because I don't really need it for anything. But definitely loving the new wheel in the Ranger. Drop in the comments. What do you guys think? How did I do? Does it look good? Is it something that you'd want in your truck? And drop whatever you want in the comments as far as this job goes, or whether I wasted my time or I should have kept the old beater steering wheel to match the rest of the truck. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And as always, keep that hammer down.